I would say for what we were doing, we did drive pretty often because one, it was just there and you wanted to see it for one thing.
Yeah.
You'd heard so much about it, and then Poppy was always crazy for a place to paint,
Yeah.
Williams Mirror was right up here. You walked right through the building and out the back, and there was this little church. Looked like a big, well, it was a little Episcopal church. My dorm was right there, and you could just come out my dorm and get dressed and go to church right here, and a dorm was there, and over here was a library.
Yeah.
And as I said, if you kept going south, you'd go right on down to the end of Duke of Gloucester Street.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that. I don't expect there was much in the way of cars driving up and down.
No, probably not. Probably that would have been maybe 1950. So
yeah, I graduated from 52, as I remember.
Yeah.
And but no, it was it was a street, and people walked, and people looked and saw and bought things, and they must have had maybe considerable money at that time. I don't know. That was kind of after the Civil War, so.
That was 70 years after the Civil War.
Was it? But I mean,
Yes,
I wonder. I know they lost a lot of family members, and I imagine they lost a lot of wealth in the Civil War too.
I suppose, yes, ma'am. I remember going to Chowning's Tavern.
Oh, do you?
With you and Virginia. They had such good bread and butter, and it was churned butter that they had churned there.
You didn't drink any of the beer?
I was only 15, so no, I never had
I
their
never
beer.
even had beer or anything, and.
Did you drink some of the beer?
Oh, I'm sure I did. It was just, I didn't, we were very, in the first place, we had been very, all of us, like in that element, we had some degree of wealth in our families. At least we weren't going down there as poor folks.
Yeah.
And a lot of raising, of what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
So you might get into some fun and games or something, but you didn't fool around. And
You didn't go too far with it.
No, because you had parents that, they were trying to raise these great big new kids, and they were going to raise them right. They weren't going to let them get away with things, And of course, a lot of them did, but it was all, and it was after a lot of fighting and killing and everything over in Europe,
Right, the Second World War and yeah.
The ocean at that time was not something to fool around trying to get across,
Yeah, in that way, I think that has helped to keep America safe.
Oh, yeah.
Big oceans between.
That's why they're so greedy right now. They want this country because they think they should have had it in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the Germans are, and a lot of those people over there, but the Germans very fierce, and for their stuff. And
do you remember?
Would they love to have this country?
Do you remember telling me about that girl that borrowed your white blouse and then gave it back with the stains from her sweating under the arms?
I seem to remember somebody talking about it. Was it you?
I think it was a girl in your dorm, or somebody you shared a dorm room with, or something like that, and she didn't even ask to borrow it, but like at the end of the semester she gave it back to you and it was ruined. And I remember Mamaw came down and stayed with you for a while when you were in school. Do you remember that?
Well, I know they came down as often as they could because they didn't want to be up in cold Pennsylvania and all that, during the spring coming on and all.
Where did they stay when they came to see you?
Oh, well, Williamsburg is places for people to stay.
Okay.
It's a tourist.
So like a hotel or a bed and breakfast or something?
Yeah, but it's a fancy tourist place. Everything looks just like Williamsburg in whatever the year was, just after the Civil War, and they had
It's been restored.
yeah, or they just built what they knew their homes used to be like
Yeah.
for their grandparents and this, that, and the other. If something was ruined, they ruined it 100% better. They were going to develop it into something for money too.
Yeah.
They were trying to get their wealth back, and there was a lot of hard times and everything for a lot of the people that went through all that.
Did you and your family go visit Danville?
Do what?
Did you guys go visit Danville?
Oh, that was my mother's birthplace.
Yes.
I think it was a birthplace. I know it was her home.
I think I remember you telling me you used to go there and visit.
Well, we especially liked all the southern named places. I mean, my dad was technically a southerner. I mean, he was an artist.
Yeah.
And our whole family was like that, and they were raised in a certain way, for a long, long, long time. And they didn't go off and start playing around at New York City and all those kind of places. I know my mother and dad were trained in New York and Philadelphia, I believe, but it was just a whole lot different. Everything was different. There was a lot of restriction and a lot of respect and a lot of harshness too, to keep things in order.
Yeah.
They'd been through a heck of a lot of everything.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to think about it, it's funny in a way that right at that particular time, the Germans didn't just get in some big boats and come over and blow us all to hell.
I don't think
'Cause
they
we were-
could.
Huh?
I don't think they could. They didn't really have the resources.
Yeah, but I mean, we were people that battled with guns all the time, when they started getting that kind of attitude. Not from the British. See, the British, were
They
very
were
close
American
to them.
allies, yeah.
Yeah, and but the Germans, I think they've been angry ever since. That they didn't come up to be the chief ones that were the fighters and all. But boy, when the Americans and the British started going over there to the Germans, they realized they had more than they thought they had.
And then the French resistance, that was a big part of it.
Yeah, and the French have a very, what would you call it? Just the same sort of attitude,
They're tough.
Mm-hmm.
Tough, loyal, pretty.
You have to be tough to speak French. I mean, they just have a whole background of good talking stuff.
Yeah.
And,
A romance language.
huh?
One of the romance languages. French, Italian, Spanish.
Well, now the Italians, watch out for them. They're a little more loose. The French are very loose in a lot of things, but they're also very careful and very intelligente.
Yes.
That's probably the Spanish way of saying
That
it.
is, yeah.
But they didn't have everything, just like they wanted it. And they had to, if they had a child, and if they had several children, that began to make it a little bit hard on these families,
Yes.
And it was a lot of good stuff in all of this, but a lot of it was very harsh as far as any degree of what you may think was fun and games,